It begins in the middle of the night, when the world is supposed to be silent, when most people are deep inside their usual cycle of rest, dreams, and unconscious recovery. First, nothing feels unusual. You go to bed like always, expecting the same slow drift into sleep, the same heavy pull that keeps you there for hours, the same привычный процесс, который никогда не вызывает вопросов. Your body relaxes, your thoughts fade, and everything follows the pattern you have known your entire life. But this time, something is different. You wake up, and it feels complete, not restless, not interrupted, not like you woke up too early. You open your eyes, expecting to see morning light, expecting to feel that lingering weight of sleep still holding onto your body. But the room is still dark. You check the time. Only 1 hour has passed. First, you assume it is a mistake. Maybe you woke up in the middle of the night for no reason. Maybe your body is just out of rhythm, something temporary that will correct itself if you try to go back to sleep. So you close your eyes again. You wait. You try to force yourself back into that familiar state. But it does not come. Your body does not want it. Your mind is clear, sharp, awake in a way that feels unnatural for this hour. You sit up slowly, feeling something you have never experienced before. Full rest. After just 1 hour. Across the world, the same moment unfolds. Millions of people wake up, confused, checking their phones, their clocks, their surroundings, all asking the same silent question. Why am I awake? And why do I feel like I don't need to sleep anymore? At first, it is dismissed as coincidence. A strange night, a temporary shift. But as minutes pass, as people try and fail to return to sleep, something becomes clear. This is not temporary. This is not a disturbance. This is a change. Within hours, the pattern becomes undeniable. Everyone experiences it. No matter where they are, no matter their привычный режим, their health, their lifestyle, their age. 1 hour of sleep is enough. Completely enough. By the time the first morning arrives, the world is already different. People wake up earlier than ever before, not because they have to, but because they physically cannot remain asleep. The idea of staying in bed for hours becomes impossible, uncomfortable, unnecessary. And at first, it feels like a gift. An extra 7 hours. Every day. Time that was once lost to sleep is suddenly available, waiting to be used. People begin to calculate immediately. 7 hours a day. That is almost 1/3 of life. Returned. Within the first days, excitement spreads faster than confusion. Social media fills with energy. People posting about everything they plan to do with their new time. Hobbies that were once impossible to maintain suddenly feel realistic. Projects that were postponed for years begin to move forward. People talk about learning new skills, building businesses, traveling more, living more. Because for the first time, time itself feels abundant. But the world they are living in was never designed for this. The first cracks appear quietly. Workplaces begin to shift almost immediately. Employers notice the change and respond quickly. If people no longer need 8 hours of sleep, then they can work more. Not officially, first, but expectations begin to grow. Longer hours, more availability, more productivity, because the excuse of exhaustion no longer exists. And people, at least in the beginning, agree. Why not? They have the energy. They have the time. They feel awake in a way they have never felt before. Cities begin to change their rhythm. The night no longer belongs to rest. Lights stay on. Streets remain active. Businesses extend their hours, some never closing at all. Restaurants, stores, services begin operating around the clock, because there is no longer a reason to stop. The line between day and night begins to blur, because humans are no longer tied to it. At first, this constant activity feels exciting, alive, like the world has unlocked a hidden level of potential. But beneath that excitement, something begins to shift, quietly, slowly, almost unnoticed. Rest was never just about sleep. It was about pause. And now that pause is gone. People begin to fill their extra time without thinking about it. More work, more content, more interaction, more movement. The hours that once forced stillness are now filled with activity, because there is no longer a physical reason not to. And over time, something changes. Not in the body, but in the mind. Because even though the body feels rested, the mind does not feel quiet. There is no natural break anymore. No forced reset. No moment where consciousness simply stops. People begin to feel something new. A subtle, growing tension. Not exhaustion, but saturation. Too many thoughts. Too much input. Too much time spent being aware. At the same time, something else begins to happen. Dreams disappear. Not immediately, not completely, but gradually. With only 1 hour of sleep, the deep cycles that once created vivid dreams begin to shorten, to weaken, to fade. And with them, something important is lost. Because dreams were not just imagination. They were processing, emotion, subconscious balance. Without them, people begin to feel different, less reflective, less emotionally grounded, more direct, more reactive, more constantly present in a way that does not allow distance from their own thoughts. Psychologists begin to notice changes in behavior. People become more impulsive, more focused on immediate action, less capable of stepping back and understanding their own emotions, because the space where that used to happen is gone. And as days turn into weeks, as the world continues to adjust to this new rhythm, one realization begins to grow stronger. This was never just about gaining time. It was about losing something else, something quiet, something invisible, something that once protected the mind from itself. And without it, people are awake, all the time, and that may be more dangerous than anyone expected. It does not feel dangerous at first. In fact, for a while, it feels like humanity has finally solved one of its oldest limitations. The need for long sleep disappears, and with it, the constant struggle between exhaustion and productivity. People feel sharper, more capable, more efficient. Entire industries celebrate the change, calling it a new era of human potential. But slowly, quietly, something begins to go wrong. Not in the body, but in the rhythm of life itself. Because when time expands, expectations expand with it. Work does not remain the same. It grows. Employers no longer see a reason to limit the workday to what it once was. If people have more energy, more waking hours, then naturally they should produce more. What begins as a subtle shift quickly becomes a new standard. 10-hour days become normal, then 12, then something even less defined. The idea of free time starts to disappear, because now there is always time. And if there is always time, then there is always something that can be done. People begin to feel a new kind of pressure, not the pressure of being tired, but the pressure of not using time correctly. If you are resting, you could be learning. If you are relaxing, you could be working. If you are doing nothing, you are wasting something that now feels too valuable to lose. And this pressure does not come from outside alone. It grows from within. At the same time, the world around them changes. Cities no longer sleep. Lights stay on, traffic continues, businesses operate without pause. The concept of night becomes symbolic rather than functional. There is no longer a shared moment where the world slows down together. Instead, everything continues endlessly without a natural break. And that endlessness begins to affect people. Not physically, mentally, because humans were never meant to be constantly active. They were meant to have cycles, moments of action, moments of rest, moments of reflection. Without those cycles, something begins to blur. Days lose their shape. Time becomes harder to track, not because there is less of it, but because it no longer feels divided. Without long sleep, without clear separation between active and inactive states, life becomes a continuous stream of experience. And in that stream, meaning begins to thin. Moments feel less distinct. Memories become less anchored. People begin to say things like, "It all feels the same," not because nothing is happening, but because too much is happening without pause. The mind does not have time to process, to organize, to understand, and slowly the effects begin to show. Attention spans shorten, not in the obvious way, but in a deeper sense. People can focus, but not for long without shifting. The mind begins to crave constant input, constant movement, constant engagement, because there is no natural reset to break that pattern. At the same time, emotional stability begins to change. Without dreams, without deep cycles of subconscious processing, emotions start to accumulate. Small frustrations do not fade the way they used to. Thoughts repeat more often. Worries linger longer. People are not overwhelmed in a single moment. They are gradually filled. And once that internal space is full, even small things begin to trigger larger reactions. Arguments escalate faster. Patience becomes harder to maintain. Understanding becomes more difficult, because the mind is always active, always engaged, always processing something new without ever fully clearing what came before. Psychologists begin to notice patterns that are difficult to ignore. People are not sleeping less. They are resting differently, and that difference has consequences. The brain, even if it feels awake and functional, begins to show signs of strain. Not through exhaustion, but through imbalance. Decision-making becomes slightly less consistent. Creativity changes, becoming more immediate but less reflective. Ideas come quickly, but depth becomes harder to maintain, because depth requires space, and space no longer exists. At the same time, something unexpected begins to emerge in society. A division, not based on wealth, not based on status, but based on how people use their time. Some individuals embrace the constant activity, filling every hour with purpose, productivity, and achievement. They build more, learn more, create more, becoming highly efficient, highly capable, highly driven. But others begin to resist, not actively, but instinctively. They search for stillness, for moments where nothing happens, for ways to recreate the pause that once came naturally. And this leads to something new: artificial rest. People begin to design ways to disconnect, to simulate the mental reset that sleep once provided. Quiet spaces, isolation environments, meditation practices, controlled sensory deprivation. Entire industries begin to form around the idea of mental silence, offering experiences that allow people to step away from constant awareness. Because awareness without interruption becomes overwhelming. At the same time, relationships begin to change again. Without shared rest, people lose a subtle form of connection. Sleep was not just individual, it was collective, a moment when everyone stepped out of the world together. Now that shared pause is gone, and with it, something emotional disappears. People spend more time together, but feel less synchronized. Conversations continue endlessly, but without natural stopping points. Goodbyes feel less defined, because there is always more time. And when there is always more time, moments lose urgency. I'll do it later. I'll say it tomorrow. But tomorrow never feels different from today. And so things are delayed, not because of lack of time, but because of too much of it. This creates a strange paradox. The more time people have, the less meaningful it feels, because meaning was never just about having time. It was about its limits, deadlines, endings, pauses. Without those, everything stretches, everything continues, and nothing feels complete. Eventually, this realization begins to spread, not as panic, but as quiet understanding. People start to see that something important was lost when sleep was reduced. Not the physical rest, but the structure of life, the rhythm that gave shape to existence, the contrast that made moments stand out. Without darkness, light loses its impact. Without rest, activity loses its meaning. And so, Slowly, humanity begins to adapt again, not by returning to long sleep, but by recreating its purpose. People begin to schedule pauses, to create boundaries, to limit their own activity intentionally, not because they have to, but because they understand that without limits, life becomes something else. Endless, flat, unfocused, and in that understanding, a final realization begins to settle. Time was never meant to be used completely. It was meant to be experienced in cycles, in contrast, in balance. And by removing the need for sleep, humanity did not just gain more hours. It lost the natural rhythm that made those hours matter. Because in a world where you are always awake, you may eventually forget what it means to truly feel alive.